This could prompt the delivery of the next round of stimulus checks for the low income. I have all the details for you in this video. Let's get into it right now. But if you're new here or if you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe by hitting that button right down below the video, as I am your one and only daily advocate, and I am very much committed to you and this community to bring you all the latest updates each and every day, hot off the wire as this information is being released, so that you can stay updated and tuned with everything going on right now and anything that may impact us going forward in regards to maybe checks, monthly checks, packages, reform, benefits, raises, anything else that may be going on right now. I'm here for you to help you out in any way that I can and to make sure that you're staying informed with everything going on. So if you haven't done so, make sure to subscribe down below and let's get right into the video. Alright, so I want to talk about a variety of different topics here in this video simply because I've been reading a lot of different reports as of recently, and there's a lot of people out there right now that are saying there are a number of different things out there that could happen at any given moment that essentially could be the straw that breaks the camel's back and ultimately brings out another round of stimulus checks specifically focused on the low income. Well, I do know that a lot of you here in this community are low income or fixed income beneficiaries of Social Security, retirement, SSDI, survivors, SSI, VA, RRB. Of course, all of those as well as many others, a lot of seniors, elderly, people with disabilities, low income, no income, a lot of great people here in this community. And like I said, I'm very much dedicated to bringing you this information and to help you out in any way that I possibly can. So here's the thing. I want to talk through some of these different reports that I've been reading as of recently that are pointing toward if any of these things happen, you better look out because we're probably going to be seeing more stimulus checks as a result of all of this going on right now. So let's walk through some of these key headlines here that I've been reading about and discuss how this could actually prompt the delivery of more checks here. All right, so number one, obviously we've talked about this one before, but again, I want to hit on this one first simply because we've talked about this before, but I want to point this out because this is something that has historically taken down the economy previously. So I want to show this to you really quickly. And then, of course, I promise I will talk about other things that I have not talked about here before so that we can all be on the same page and let you know what's going on. So first off, gas prices. Now, again, I know we've talked about this, but here's the thing. Gas prices are over $4 a gallon right now as far as the national average. And they continue to say if gas prices continue to move higher as they are expecting them to do and potentially even breach $5 a gallon, which they're still anticipating sometime this year, while oil is likely going to be reaching $160 to $200 a barrel sometime in 2022. As a result of that, we will certainly see over $5 per gallon. At that time, that is going to play a major role in the economy because it's going to hit all sectors of the economy. Energy prices translate into the price of essentially everything. Therefore, this is going to really hit the economy going forward. Not only that, if gas prices continue to move significantly higher, it's going to increase inflation going forward because, like I said, it does translate into the prices of essentially everything. Therefore, they're saying if gas prices move much higher than what we're currently seeing right now, about $4.22 a gallon is what the national average is right now. They're saying if we start pushing into the early or the upper $4 range and even low $5 range, it's pretty much all bets off. The economy is coming down. So they're basically saying when we see this happen, we're going to go into a major recession, which leads me right into the next point that I've been reading in separate articles is the United States economy is essentially right on the brink of a major, deep recession. So in the event that the United States economy falls into a deep recession, which is actually what they're counting on sometime this year, like later this year in 2022, or possibly even 2023, when we fall into this deep recession, now again, this is just what the economists, the analysts, all the experts are looking at right now. And they're writing about this saying, when we fall into this deep recession that everybody is anticipating coming forward, this likely will prompt the delivery of another stimulus check simply because what do they need to do when the economy falls into a recession? Well, they need to come out and they need to pump money into the system, right? How do they do that? And what is the fastest way to do that? Well, just like we saw back in 2008, 2009 from the great financial crisis, remember that one? The economy was just basically collapsing on itself. The financial market was basically going straight down for about a year straight. Remember that? Yeah, I certainly remember that, right? Well, what they did back then is, yes, they sent out stimulus checks back then. Do you remember that? They did send out stimulus checks back then. The whole purpose of that was to go out and spend the money and stimulate the economy back into basically where it needs to be, which is exactly what they did in early 2020, late 2020, and early 2021 as well. And gave us money and told us, here's some money, go out and spend it. Stimulate, right? Stimulate the economy. It's exactly what they did then. So the economists and the analysts, everybody watching this right now is saying, when we fall into another deep recession here, there's likely going to be more checks going out the door because this is the best way that they can send out like wads of cash into the pockets of the people and basically instruct us, here's some money, please go out and spend it. Buy some stuff. That's all they're asking us to do with the money, right? So I don't think for any of us these days it's going to be too hard to go out and spend some money, right? I think all of us are probably feeling like there's a lot of things we've been putting off for a very long time now that we could need, not necessarily frivolous spending, but more like just necessities that we've maybe been putting off simply because, money's tight right now for a lot of people. Therefore, if they were to give us a check, I don't think many of us would have too hard of a time going out and spending it on things. Maybe some clothes, maybe some shoes, maybe some food in our pantries, things like this, maybe buying a new car, whatever. Honestly, doesn't really matter. They just simply want us to spend money. So they're looking at the situation saying we are on the brink of a major, major deep recession. When that hits, watch out because checks are likely going to be flowing going forward. Now, next is the inflation situation. Now, this is kind of an interesting situation because it kind of goes both ways. On one hand, we're reading information saying inflation is really hot, which obviously we all know that inflation is very, very hot right now. But we're also seeing other people saying the best way to get ahead of this inflation is by sending out more checks to the people. Because here's the thing, if we send out more checks that are above and beyond what inflation currently is right now, this is how people can actually get ahead. But the problem is incomes are not keeping up with the inflation, therefore people are falling behind. Well, that kind of makes sense, right? So logically, as we look at that, we could probably say, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense, right? If we give people more money to get ahead of the inflation, well, then that should probably help out with the inflation situation, provided the checks are highly focused. Unless it is a broad check that goes out to a lot of people, we could be adding even more fuel onto this inflationary situation, right? So that's why the people are saying we've got to really send out, in the event of another check, it's got to be highly focused to the low income and the fixed income, those people who need the checks the most, is because then, provided we send out a focus check, we're not going to be dealing with this massive inflation going forward, right? It's going to have very minimal inflationary impacts. So I kind of like it. I totally agree with that. Yes, it needs to be a highly focused check, like we've always talked about here on the channel, to the low income and the fixed income. These are the people who need it, a highly focused check, not one of these broad checks like they've sent out the last few times where it goes to 170 million people. That's not necessarily these days. They do not need to send out a check for 170 million people. They need to send out a check for probably about 50 million people, maybe even less than that, right? So about a third, less than a third of the people actually need the check these days. Versus what we were seeing, a year ago, 2 years ago, things like this. So the inflationary standpoint. So another thing too, because of all this inflation, the Federal Reserve is stepping in and they're starting to raise interest rates. Well, a couple weeks ago, they came out and they raised interest rates by 0.25%, a quarter of 1 point or 25 basis points. Well, as we've discussed before, this is not going to do anything to inflation. However, the Federal Reserve has also indicated here over the last couple days, okay, yeah, a quarter of a point was nothing. We're going to get a little bit more aggressive going forward, and watch out because we're going to start jacking these rates up much higher. So that's another thing going forward as well, because here's what we know going forward. Generally, when the Federal Reserve comes in and starts tightening like this, right? They start tightening up rates and they start jacking rates up. This also leads to the economy thinking, we don't really like this, and the economy starts heading south, right? So the economy does not like these higher rates because easy money is no longer a thing. When I say easy money, I mean going out and being able to borrow money. It's not as easy as it once was. And if people do go out and borrow money, well, they're paying much higher interest rates, which that's the whole purpose behind the Federal Reserve coming out raising rates is when they raise rates, it lowers the appetite for getting money. Therefore, it's less money. People going out borrowing money and spending money. Therefore, it helps lower inflation. But they've got to really jack up rates in order to do that. But it's kind of like this double-sided thing, right? Where on one hand, yes, jacking up rates significantly does lower inflation, but at the same time, it also kind of squishes the economy. It kind of smothers the economy, right? So they kind of really got to thread this needle very closely, or very specifically, right? They got to thread the needle very, very carefully when they do this rate hiking situation. So it kind of comes down to this. Yes, inflation is raging, and they've got to do something about it. On the other hand, the Federal Reserve is raising rates to actually lower inflation, but yet they're going to smother the economy at the same time. So they got a juggling act here that they need to work on very, very carefully. As a result of that, some people are also coming out saying, okay, we've got inflation running hot, we've got the Federal Reserve coming in, raising rates, and on the other hand, we should also be focusing on sending out very highly focused checks to help out those people who are still being hit by all of this inflation, aka the low income and the fixed income. You kind of get what I'm saying here? So once again, threading the needle very, very carefully to lower inflation, to help probably not smother the economy too quickly, and then at the same time, shuffling some cash to the low income and the fixed income who need it right now as a result of rapidly rising prices. Kind of get what I'm saying? So kind of an intricate detail right there, but something that they need to focus on very carefully, because if they raise rates too fast, well, then the economy comes down. If they don't raise rates fast enough, well, then inflation continues to run hot. And if they don't get the cash out into the pockets of the people, well, then we're looking at millions of people who just continue to struggle and possibly fall behind, which once again further hurts the economy, right? You can't have people struggling out there because this ultimately does come back on the economy. So you can see here, it's a very intricate process as this whole thing is laid out. But these are some of the reports that I've been reading about lately and how they are trying to really, like I've said, thread the needle on this whole situation. It's a major situation. I mean, don't get me wrong. The situation that the United States is in right now is a really tricky situation. I'm glad that I am not in charge of this stuff right now because honestly, I don't want this coming down on my shoulders. I mean, honestly, this is kind of a bad situation. The Federal Reserve is in a little bit of a predicament. The administration, the president, Congress, they're all in a little bit of a predicament right now. And honestly, it seems to me, based on everything I'm reading about this and what I'm observing, obviously, I can read anything about this, but what I'm observing, like I say, like the old saying goes, watch what they do, not what they say, right? Well, it's kind of the exact same thing that we're watching here with Congress and the administration. Watching what they're doing, which is essentially nothing. They're doing almost nothing. Why? Probably because they're too scared to do anything because they know if they do the wrong thing here, they're basically going to implode the economy, right? Which is not going to be a good situation. So it's kind of interesting to watch all this play out because they're not really doing a whole lot. Meanwhile, the reports, the analysts, the experts, which by the way, Congress is not an expert. The administration, they are not experts. This is not me taking political sides. It's telling you the truth. The people that we should be listening to are the experts, the analysts, the people on Wall Street, the big people out there that control billions of dollars, tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars. They are the people who really know what's going on. They are the people who know what actually needs to be done. The Federal Reserve, the administration, Congress, they don't have a clue. They don't really know what's going on. They're basically just trying to play around with some things and feel like, okay, let's try this for a little while. Well, they should really be advised by the people who actually control all the money, which are the guys on Wall Street. And again, I'm not saying that we should all, follow the big banks and all the hedge funds and stuff like this, but let's be real with ourselves. They know some stuff. They're very, very smart people. And therefore, they are the people who we should be watching and almost taking advice from as far as how to thread the needle on this situation and what to do going forward with the inflation and as far as rates go, interest rate hikes and things like this, because they ultimately know the solution towards all this stuff. So anyway, kind of a very interesting situation, right? So we've got some people who are acting as the experts who really don't have a clue. And then really, on the other hand, we've got the real experts who are trying to give their expert advice saying, here's how we should really do this situation. And here's what we should have happen go forward. So anyway, this is what I want to lay out for you in this video. But ultimately, there is still talk about specific checks out there, stimulus checks, and any of these catalysts that could come forward actually pointing toward additional checks for the low income and the fixed income. We're walking a really fine line right now, and basically whatever side of that line we tip on could be a disastrous outcome. So anyway, only time will tell to see how this whole thing plays out. And hopefully sooner than later, they'll get these checks pumping out the door in any way, shape, or form, some kind of capacity, some kind of money coming out to the people. But either way, I'll continue doing all the research on this. As I do get more information, of course, I'll continue to be right here for you, breaking it all down, helping you out in any way that I possibly can. So if you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It's totally free to do so. There's that button right down below the video. Feel free to hit that. Otherwise, feel free to go back and check out any of the other 2,300 plus videos right here on the channel. And also, of course, feel free to share them with your friends, family, and social media. Thanks again. I hope this gives you a little bit more of a glimpse into what is really going on, what are the reports and some of the things that I'm reading out there as far as what's actually happening, and what is being advised as far as how to proceed with this very precarious situation that we're put in right here in the country. So please enjoy. I'm here for you in any way that I possibly can be. Leave your comments and questions down below, and I'll do my best to answer those, as well as make dedicated videos as necessary. And ultimately, please remember, I am your one and only daily advocate, and I'm here for you in any way that I possibly can be. So, enjoy your day, and I'll catch you again later in the next video. All right, I'll see you again.